Hey everyone, Kevin P McAuliffe here for Assimilate Inc. and I'm back again with the next lesson in our Learn Scratch tutorial series. And in this lesson, I want to start talking about layers. We talked a little bit about versions in our previous episode where we talked about how we could get in create versions and how they appear inside of the slots in the construct window. Well, in this lesson, I want to give you a brief introduction to layers. Layers have just that, a lot of layers to them, but it's important to understand what the layers window is, how it works, what the three tabs in the window actually represent, and how we're going to get in, add layers, and how they interact with each other. All right, so as you can see, we are in Scratch. We are going to need a clip to work with, and sure, why don't we go with the giraffe that we have there? I'm just simply going to say open. I'm going to drop it into a slot in the construct window. What I'm going to do, if you'll remember in the previous lesson, is I'm just going to set the correct color space for this shot, and then what I'm going to do is jump down to the color effects window. Now I'm going to be jumping in and using some tools in the color effects window, but the tools that I'm going to be using are not necessarily as important as the actual layers themselves and the concept of layers and how they work inside of Scratch. Now, in our previous lesson, we did talk about versions, how we could get in, add multiple versions of a shot. Whatever the bottommost version is what would be visible, and then we could navigate over to the construct module to see those versions laid out in the slot for this particular shot. Now, we were talking about what's on the right side of the screen, so let's now talk about what's on the left side of the screen and layers and how they work. And how I like to describe layers inside of Scratch is think of them as panes of glass that we're going to be laying over top of our footage. And we could be doing any one of a number of different things, whether it's, secondary color correction, whether it's just primary color correction, balances, curve adjustments, even getting in and isolating areas of the shot with canvases to do specific color correction tasks to that. Now in this lesson, I want to talk about the layers window, what the three different tabs represent, and what some of the little gotchas might be. Now, there's a ton that we're going to talk about when it comes to layers. Think of this lesson as a bit of a primer. Now, one thing that I love inside of Scratch, and I'm just going to point this out to you here, is that if I zoom back on our window here, and I was to at any point zoom in, you'll see my shot zooms in here to basically fill the canvas top to bottom. But one thing that I love is as I start to add other windows here, if I was to navigate over here, let me just close this window here, and I was going to reposition this shot over here. If I was to come back in and center it up, you'll now see that it's actually centered up in between this edge and the right side of the frame. So this is a very interesting way of thinking and how Scratch does things. Everything can be centered up based on what windows or tabs or panels you happen to have open. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. So I'm simply going to say create. We're going to call this layer red circle left. Now, what you're going to notice is that two things have happened when we've added this layer. Something has appeared called primaries, and then the layer has appeared called red circle left. You can see that up here in the upper left-hand corner in the layers tab. So what exactly does this represent? Well, ignore the layer for right now. Let's just talk about primaries. What this actually represents is just the actual shot itself. So if I didn't get in and add any layers, any corrections that I'd be doing to this shot would actually be added to the primaries. We just wouldn't see it in the layers menu. All right. So I've created something called red circle left. So let's get in and let's actually create a red circle for us to work with. Now I am already on the canvas. I'm going to navigate down to the circle canvas. Now you're going to notice that nothing has happened. Now something actually has happened, but a couple things have actually happened here. And what I want to draw your attention to is this little button right here where it says view main output / full context. Now, by default, this is turned on if you have more than one video layer in your timeline, which I just happen to have. So if you are going to get in and add a canvas to a layer and for some reason it doesn't appear, first thing to always check is right here to see if view main output / full context is turned on, and simply turn it off and I will see the actual circle itself. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take it, we're going to shrink it down, I don't know, somewhere to about there, and I'm just going to place it on the left-hand side right here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to come up to balance and I'm going to make this a red circle. So I'm simply going to take the red value and drag it right up. Now you'll notice that as I made that primary change to this layer, that primary identifier has immediately appeared in the barcode to tell me that a primary change has happened to this particular layer. So this is where now you can start to see how things are carrying over from different areas. We originally saw this in slots, now we're seeing it in layers. All right. So now I'm going to leave actually the recursive mode and the layers and the different tabs till the very end and show you how those work. All right. So let's now create a new layer. We're going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this blue circle right. Now, once I say blue circle right, I'm simply going to, again, much like I had done before, come to canvas. We're going to create a new circle like such. We're going to take it. We're going to shrink it down. I don't really care about its size too much, but I do care about its positioning because I'm going to position it roughly about there. And again, we're going to come up to balance. And I'm going to make that circle blue like such. And last but certainly not least, I need to create a new circle, and we're going to call this green circle bottom. And with green circle bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that layer appears. Perfect. The layer is selected. We're going to come down to canvas. Again, I'm going to select that circle shape, shrink it right down. And you know where I'm going with this. We're going to balance. We're going to make this layer green, and we're going to position it roughly about there. Okay. Now, let's talk about what exactly is going on with the layers panel, because we have a few different panels that do different things. All right. Obviously, the layers panel is where we're going to get in and set all of the layers for any particular color correction grade or anything like that that we need to do. Right beside that, we have a tab called Front, and I'm just going to use the red circle as the example. So I'm going to select the red circle. I'm going to head to the Front tab, and what this lets us do is come in and adjust our transfer modes for any particular layer that we have selected. So if I was to come and make that an additive transfer mode, you'll see that's now added to that specific layer and no others. Okay, so we could get in, change those to whatever we want to have them change to. And keep in mind that any change that we make to any of these buttons or into the recursive mode will trickle over to all of the different menus or all the different tabs. All right. And last but certainly not least, we have the matte tab, which is where the overall alpha of the shot is made up. So for example, if the shot's alpha channel should only contain the shape of the red circle layer, for example, you'd set the blue and green circle layers alpha to be none. Or in other scenarios, you'd choose blend modes to make the alphas of different layers and have them interact with each other to create the overall shot alpha. Now, let's head back to our layers, because this is a very important concept you're going to need to keep in mind here. And it's over here in recursive mode. Now, right beside recursive mode, this is basically the layer toggles. We can toggle layers on and off by simply clicking here like such. All right. Now, what exactly does recursive mode do? Well, right now, if you take a look at my image, you'll see that the red, the green, and the blue circles interact with each other, meaning that we can see through these layers, as I said before, much like panes of glass. And what these are doing with each other is they are actually interacting. So you'll see red and blue make purple, red and green make yellow, etc., etc. Now, if I didn't want the layers to interact with each other and I wanted them to basically just be separate layers, no interaction, this is where recursive mode comes into play. You'll see that as I turn recursive mode off, these layers now do not interact with each other. They're completely separate layers doing separate things, and they'll sit on top of each other in the stacking order. As you can see, the way the stacking order works is whatever layer is at the top of the layers window, that layer is actually at the bottom of the stack. And at any point, we can take that, reposition it where we want it to go, and you'll see the stacking order will update immediately in the canvas to show me our new layout. Okay, so I think this lesson is a good introductory primer to layers. We covered the layers tab, the front tab, and the matte tab, as well as how to get in, create layers, how they interact with each other, and how you can quickly turn them on and off as necessary. All right, I want to thank you for watching this great lesson on learning Assimilate Scratch. Now, don't forget to check us out on our different social channels, and if you missed our last lesson, you can simply click on it right here on the screen in front of you. Don't forget as well to hit that subscribe button, and if you have any questions, you can always send them to me at kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com.